Welcome back to the show today. We are talking about the 2023-2024 Clippers and how the stakes are very high for this season. This is one of the most shiny teams of all time. You got 4 Hall of Famers on this team. I think Paul George is going to be a Hall of Famer. All of these Hall of Famers are actually still valuable contributors as well. Not like when Carmelo Anthony and Dwight Howard joined the Lakers in their late 30s. 3 of these all-time greats don't have rings yet. Obviously, there's less pressure on Kawhi. He's already got 2 chips and 2 Finals MVPs. Of course, I'm sure he'd like to get another on his 3rd team, but the dude accomplished a lot early in his career, so the stuff he achieves now is just sort of icing, right? The guys I'm talking about today are Westbrook, Harden, and Paul George. Let's start with Westbrook. You may say, well, isn't Westbrook kind of ring chasing? He joined the Clippers on a vet minimum contract. Surely he could have signed a bigger deal with a team that's less likely to win a championship, right? I don't think so. I think he's right where he needs to be. He signed a 2-year vet minimum contract, which is perfect for where he is in his career. And I know this because the 2nd year of that deal is a player option, meaning that Westbrook and his agent have left the door open for him to sign with a different team next year if he gets a better offer. So Russ is not ring chasing, man. Now let's keep it real. Russ has received a lot of criticism throughout his entire career. I think he's one of the most polarizing players over the last 10 years. People either love or they hate Russ. But regardless of which side you fall on, you can't argue that Russ is an iconic NBA player. He's been an MVP, he's made it to the finals, and he broke Oscar Robertson's all-time triple-double record. But on the other side, he's been criticized for chasing those triple-doubles to the detriment of his team. People have accused him of being checked out on defense and being terribly inefficient. I think the lowest point in his career was his 1.5 season stint with the Lakers. You know, the whole Westbrook era.
He was playing pretty good team defense. Missed the final 47 last year. What happened there?
I don't think he's quite come back from that yet, even though his time as a Clipper has been somewhat redemptive. If Russ wins a championship with the Clippers, I think it's going to totally change the way we talk about his legacy. If he doesn't win a ring, he's going to fall into that category of player of the guys that won MVPs but never won a championship. I'm talking about Iverson, Malone, who else? Who's on my list? But if he does win a championship as a cog on this Clippers machine, I'd say in 10 years, we'd probably start saying that he's one of the 15 best point guards that ever played the game. And I don't think we're ever going to hear the word Westbrook ever again.
We were about defense, and then once we stopped you, got out on the break. What I'm disappointed with Westbrook is I thought he was going to come with all this energy.
The second player we got to talk about is James Harden. James Harden has the 2nd best resume in the league without a championship. I'm going to say Chris Paul has a little bit better resume. Harden is in a similar position as Russ because he carries a lot of baggage with him throughout his career. But Harden's baggage has less to do with his play and more to do with interpersonal issues. Aside from the comically bad defense he played in Houston that became a meme, I'm talking about his trade demands, the way he forced his way out of teams. You remember the fat suit in Houston, which I believe was actually a fat suit. The man put on fake fat in order to look worse out on the court. I love that. I shouldn't love it, but I do.
I want to talk about some aesthetics. James Harden definitely had a pregame meal, averaging 17 points per game over the last 4.
Then in Brooklyn, he forced his way out, allegedly. Remember, he never made a public trade demand. Then in Philly, he made a very public trade demand.
Daryl Morey is a liar, and I would never be a part of an organization that he's a part of. Daryl Morey is a liar, and I would never be a part of an organization that he's a part of either.
Needless to say, the man is messy, but he's also one of the most skilled basketball players that I've ever seen. Harden is also known for choking in the postseason, though. Most notably for me in 2018 in the Western Conference Finals. I believe I talked about this series twice already in my videos, so I'm not going to talk about it again. But the Rockets had the Warriors right where they wanted them in Game 6, and they totally blew it. I don't really hold this against Harden, though. It's not like he's Tracy McGrady who never won a playoff series. He's a 3-time scoring champion and a 2-time assist leader. I think his most impressive accomplishment, though, is his 2018-19 season, which ranks the 10th highest point total in NBA history. Better than Steph, better than Bron, better than KD. None of them ever got that high. Again, just like Russ, I think a lot of people are going to forget this negative sentiment against Harden if he wins a championship this year with the Clippers. Then we have Paul George. Remember, Paul George was LeBron's biggest rival while he was at the Heat. PG never beat LeBron in the playoffs, even though he played him really hard. They matched up 3 different times while he was at the Heat. Twice in the Eastern Conference Finals. Paul and the Pacers never really figured out how to get around Miami's big 3. But people thought eventually in his career he would get past LeBron. If you watch those Eastern Conference Finals, you look at Paul George and he is lockstep with LeBron James.
We are seeing a superstar in the making. This is your Kodak moment.
That quarter, just as they did in the first 2. Long jumper and no hand slap.
This is good. This is going to be good between these 2 players.
LeBron only got past him because he had a better team. Then, of course, Paul George suffered his ankle injury in 2014. I'm not going to show the video. If you want to see it, check it out. It's pretty brutal. Now, Paul George has had a couple good running mates since then. He was with Russ and OKC for 2 seasons, but they got eliminated in the first round of the playoffs both years. And then he's had Kawhi while he's been with the Clippers, but they both had a really hard time staying healthy. And the time they were both healthy, Paul George was pretty disappointed. If I'm going to mention Westbrook, I got to mention Pandemic P.
Beverly kicks it out.
They've gotten a number of second shots, though.
George, way off. Hits the side of the backboard.
But this season, Paul George has already played 50 games. If he plays 7 more games, he'll already have played more games in a season than he has as a Clipper. Paul George and Kawhi were the poster children for load management. Any YouTube video about load management or the 65 game rule is going to have a picture of Kawhi or Paul George or both. Mine did. No one's talking about that right now. Paul George and Kawhi were both All-Stars this year. I'm hearing a lot of NBA media members change their tune about who the best team in the West is. Nuggets talk is fading and people are high on the Clippers. This is what I'm talking about. NBA fans are fickle. People aren't really talking about Westbrook and Pandemic P right now. If they win a championship this season, no one is ever going to say those nicknames again. Although, the state of the Clippers this next offseason is in a very uncertain state. But for this season, this is the last chance crew. Harden is a free agent at the end of the season. What contract he's offered at the end of the season is going to be really interesting, right? The Clippers gave up a lot for Harden, and they definitely want to keep him. But if he chokes again in the playoffs, the Clippers are probably going to lowball him, right? And we all know James Harden does not like to be lowballed.
Is a liar.
Or lied to, for that matter. He is not going to accept the vet minimum deal like Russ did. He's not going to go from making $35 million a year to $4 million a year. He's just not going to do it. He either wins a championship this year, re-signs with the Clippers, or he heads back to Houston if he's lowballed by the Clippers. Houston will probably pay him a bunch of money, and he'll be worshipped like a god. Paul George, on the other hand, has a player option next offseason. It's worth $48 million. Interestingly, Kawhi was in the same position, but the Clippers did extend Kawhi this season. He now has 3 more years after this season as a Clipper. They have not done the same for Paul George. This leads me to believe he was not offered the same deal that Kawhi was offered. I think if he was offered that deal, he would have signed it. He's already said this is Kawhi's team. He's not looking for more money than Kawhi. The Clippers, for whatever reason, have demonstrated more faith in Kawhi than they have Paul George, which may cause PG to turn down his player option this offseason and sign with another team that'll pay him more money. And this is not a bad idea. There are a lot of good teams out there with cap space. They would definitely sign Paul George to a 3-year, $150 million deal. Good teams too. Maybe the Spurs, he could play with Wemby. I think the Jazz could put something together. Maybe they wouldn't be a championship contender, but they could definitely put together a good package for him. Personally, I would like to see the Magic use all their cap space and try to get PG. The Clippers postseason is going to be crazy interesting. It's going to define these players' careers and their legacies. All right, if I left out a detail about the Clippers' Big Four, let me know. I always reply. I don't always agree. I usually agree, but I don't always agree. Like the video if you liked it, dislike the video if you didn't like it, subscribe if you want to, eat a corn dog, and be nice to your mom, all right?